Hello everyone. Good afternoon to everyone who has joined in. I, Pooja, welcome you on behalf of Lawyered. So, in this events, the series that we have been doing in the month of February, we have been inviting different general counsels of different organizations and have been uh, knowing what the challenges they have faced in their respective fields. So today's topic of the webinar is role of pharmaceutical companies in COVID and the legal perspective related to it. For this, we cannot have a better panelist than Mr. Prateush Sharma, who is the General Counsel of Mankind Pharma. Prateush has an experience of over 2 decades. He has served in the Federal Revenue of Law and has been the partner and at Kocher and Company and has been the partner at MV Kinney and companies. So Prateush Sharma is the general counsel of the biggest private sector pharma companies currently in India, Mankind Pharma. I welcome you, Prateush, sir.
Thanks, Pooja. I would like to first say that I'm appearing in my personal capacity, not as a GC for Mankind at this stage. Uh, though I have an experience of Mankind Pharma Limited as it's the first pharma company that I've been working in, but I'm attending this webinar in my personal capacity. So all my opinions and answers are all personal and it's nothing to do with Mankind Pharma Limited. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So today's event's topic is the role of pharmaceutical companies in India and the legal perspective related to it. So, I would like to ask you the very first question that what were the first reaction of yours when you heard about the lockdown?
People who are related to the industry, it was very much on the anvil. If you see the chronology, it was somewhere in December 19 and early Jan 20 that the cluster case was reported in Wuhan and incident management support team was constituted by WHO. Around 14th and 15th of Jan, who in a press briefing stated there was a risk of possible wider outbreak. Then somewhere in second week of March, who characterized it as a pandemic. But by then, Italy was already under lockdown, followed by France, US, and Germany. Even we closed our offices on 17th. So it was very much on the anvil. The question was when.
Yes, sir. So every company and every field and every industry have faced many challenges despite the lockdown exemption, of course. So what do you think the Indian pharmaceutical companies have faced challenges despite this lockdown exemption?
We being in essential services was slightly better. In terms, we had a lot of administrative support. We were also exempted by the MHA notifications. But yes, there were common factors. Like the first thing was the fear factor because nobody knew how it spreads, what is the outcome, what is the survival rate, what's the no, there was no defined protocol for that. So there were rumors that it stays in on the surfaces for 2 to 3 days. If you touch your hand, you'll get infected. It stays in the air for 13 feet. So till the first floor you're infected. So all those things was creating a lot of fear factor. Uh, and understandably so because there was no protocol at that time, which was people were sure of. Then there were some administrative issues like when the exemptions were given, people were not sure how those exemptions are to be implemented. We had to run around for passes from Commissioner Police to Director Industries. Sometimes their offices were not there; they were out on the grounds, so there were some logistical issues. More than that, we also had a responsibility towards our employees who were coming into the factories. Though we had to run our factories, but we had to make sure that there are no COVID cases therein. So a lot of standard operating processes had to be designed with whatever little information we had about COVID then. Social distancing had to be done, PPE kits had to be given. The biggest logistical challenge was to bring the workforce from home because some of them had gone to their native places. How do you transport them from their home to the factories was one big logistical challenge that we have because buses were not allowed, public transport was not there. So all those things required a lot of hard work. I think we burned a lot of midnight oil to get through it. And there were shortages, and there were other issues like packaging issues. Packaging industry was per se exempt, which was related to the pharma industry. But packaging material is not an essential good per se. So the transport of packaging material, raw material was another issue which we faced a lot. Our transport team and procurement team worked overnight, to oversee those things. Plus, there was no loading, unloading. There was a problem with loading and unloading of the cargo. So it was a humongous challenge, but yes, the pandemic was of the nature, and we had to get up to that level to face it. The biggest issue that we faced was the R&D, because R&D initially was not exempt. Only the factories were exempted. So getting permissions from the relevant authorities was an issue. R&D is one factor which keeps a factory running. So they give a lot of logistical support. A lot of tests are being done daily on the formulations that are being procured. Then the stability tests are there. Then technology transfer is there for some new product, or changing it from one machine to another machine. So that was one big issue that we faced for quite some time.
Yes, so when we personally remember that time, we had a lot of rumors about when we touch hands, the COVID spreads, and we have personally listened to every rumor. So when we talk about COVID, so the pharmaceutical companies and the term vaccination appears automatically. So, what do you think the legal difficulties the pharmaceutical companies have faced in the registration of vaccinations?
They are not difficulties per se. They're procedural part. You can't say them they're legal difficulties. You have to understand the pharma sector. Pharma sector is basically a public. Uh, there's a lot of public health involved there. So things have to be a little regulated. It has to be highly disciplined. So in that sense, if we see, we have a lot of support from the departments per se. Uh, when you have to manufacture a drug or start a new drug, then you have to seek permission from the licensing authority. But prior to that, we have to seek permission from the center in Form 44. You have to give the submit a protocol under Schedule Y, which is a lot of technical information. I'm a legal person, so I can't stress too much on that. Then you have to prove the efficacy and the efficiency and the safety of the drug in Indian population. So you have to conduct clinical trials in accordance with the guidelines specified in Schedule Y and submit the report. So there are actually four. There's a preclinical study. Then there are four phases. Phase one, which is human pharmacology. Then there are exploratory trials. Then there are confirmatory trials, which are clinical trials, which is a clinical trial, which is done on a small population or a large population or special population. Then there are phase four, and post-marketing surveillance. So what happens? Are there any serious effects or adverse effects on the patients who are taking those drugs? So these are essential. We can't say it's a difficulty. It's a procedural part. It has to be done keeping the public interest in mind. Then after your clinical trial is done, then you submit the clinical trial data for evaluation, safety, and efficacy. Then you submit it to authorities. Then they have a look at it, and they may change the protocol again for clinical trials. And then they can also say that no, you have to put this disclaimers. There's a lot of work that goes on, which is highly technical, and government is about a statutory body to look into these matters.
So, is in your opinion, is it the difficult or the easiest part to register the vaccination of COVID than registration of any other medicine?
Vaccinations, obviously, because they are mostly inoculated, and there are some, they're biological also. There's a little more tough, but I would not be the appropriate person, to talk about those specificities where I'm a legal person rather than a regulatory person.
Okay, sir. So as you talked about the R&D and the data of the public good public health sector, so do you think that government should have took other or good other steps to for this direction or in this direction?
Government has to play a major role in this. Uh, the agenda for public health is both in center and state, I think, and the center has given epidemiological, entomological, environmental, and social detriments. They've already highlighted that. Yes, I agree that there's an urgent call for revitalizing primary health care in order to meet these challenges. And they also have to influence population health, not only limited to the health sector, but also like population stabilization, gender mainstreaming and empowerment, reducing the impact of climate change and disasters for health, improving community participation and governance issues are other important areas. Collective action is crucial. Then, if you see in India, maternal and child mortality HIV/AIDS pandemic, and other communicable diseases still exerts immense strain on the overstretched health systems here. In India, if you see, the tobacco attributable deaths range from around 8 lakhs to 9 lakhs per year. It's a huge social and economic loss. Then there are mental, neurological, substance use disorders, road deaths. If we talk about road deaths, 2 to 5 million hospitalizations, over 1 lakh deaths. So these are silent epidemics. So what we need is a universal access, coverage, equity, community participation, defining and implementing health agendas. It needs to be addressed. However, if you see in context of this pandemic, it is next to impossible to have an infrastructure to cater to 7 billion population in case of such pandemics. You see the whole population is more than 7 billion now.
Yes, sir.
Public health infrastructure of developed countries like US, Germany, Italy, Italy we all know, it almost collapsed. The country, the population had better immune system, fared well like India. Otherwise, you could have imagined in Dharavi, which is a population of 28,000 per square kilometer, could survive a pandemic.
Yes, sir. So the government have taken every possible step that they could, right?
Within their limits, they did it more than 100%. That's what I'm.
Okay, sir. So, sir, during this COVID period and the lockdown period, the numerous lockdown first phase, second phase have been done. In these, the ban thing were taken into consideration that various things were banned, the imports were banned, various applications were banned. We all have known PUBG was banned, everything was banned. So, what did the pharmaceutical companies face the issue while the imports of medicines were banned?
Imports of medicines per se, China, uh, if you see in 2019, China exported around 10.12 million tons of APIs, up to 8.83% year-on-year data from the China Chamber of, that is up to as per China Chamber of Commerce. Uh, India is dependent on 70% of the APIs from China. But, over a quarter of that comes from Hubei, which was the epicenter of the outbreak, the Shandong provinces. But as of March end, production resumed in 98.6% of China's major industrial enterprises. And within 2 months, we started getting API. So we had plenty of stock with ourselves. And since we are subs who are doing packaging, so we didn't face much of the problems. Government of India was panel with DCGI to deal with any API shortages.
So, sir, is it that after the imports were banned, we started producing our own medicines and the production of medicine in India was started?
No, it's not that simple. It has got a lead time of 3 to 4 years. Now, most of the pharma sectors are now looking for downstreaming in a sense that they are looking for more API industries. It's gonna take some time. Our dependence on China is not gonna go in a single day or on wishful thinking. It's gonna take at least 3 to 4 years to be a little more self-reliant on APIs.
Okay. And so it was seen that because of COVID, the medicines which were in registration or in making had faced a lot of delay because all the non-COVID pharmaceutical projects have been delayed because of this pandemic. So how did the pharmaceutical companies cope with it and how you personally cope with it?
No, we didn't have much of the issues because the delay, it normally has a 2 to 3 years of a lead time. The process that I told you earlier, every time you go to a committee, there are discussions of the relevant people who are top in the industry, who are qualified to do those discussions, and it's for the betterment of the public. So what they do, they change the protocol also at times, sometimes to 4 to 5 times, and they change the population on which study has to be done. So it takes time. I don't think it's delayed per se. 3 4 months is not a delay that matter.
So, sir, what system or procedure did your company face to cope with the outbreak of coronavirus and the lockdown situation?
I told you it was an immense exercise. First thing we had to keep updated on what are the guidelines that are being issued by the center. Then we have to get updated because we are supposed to be professionals in this field. We are supposed to be more equipped. both in terms of tech and information. So we have to prepare guidelines for our staff to follow. Then we have to approach the authorities to allow us to function at 30%, 40%, 50% of our staff strength. Then SOPs were, the whole policy was drafted. It's a huge policy, like 15, 20 pages that we have. Then it didn't end there. Then we have to work on the employees when they're going home, what they're doing, because they can bring corona from there. So whatever little information we have, it was an end-to-end policy. We requested our employees to keep their Bluetooths on so their RFP set is working so that nobody else gets infected. Then there was a response mechanism inside. There was a COVID action task force that was created to, see, have monitor how the responses are being done. It was very ingenious. If you open the door, if there are 100 people working in a factory, the door needs to be opened every time. So we had to install a hook lever. It was very ingenious that the people did in our industry.
Yes.
So the use of common facilities like toilets and the restrooms, all those things need to be accounted for. And it was a very strenuous, a long drawn battle that we did for initial 15 to 20 days before we thought of running full stream on operations.
So, sir, in the COVID situation and on the lockdown situation, we heard that government was coming up with new regulations every other day. So, how did you cope with this? That how did the pharmaceutical companies cope with every other day new regulations?
For that, lawyers were there in our team. We were working with 24 hours, 365 days for that matter. We had a team of 7 people who were working on that. Uh, all press releases, all newspapers, all news things were regularly. And then what happens is we have a community. There are so many WhatsApp groups that are being made. So the lawyers help each other that way, and all information that was being. If one lawyer got it, he immediately shared it with all, and we use all that information. That's what I'm saying. It was very strenuous and a long-term battle that we did. Every time there were certain changes in the policies, but the social distancing part, the sanitization part, the PPE kit part, the kits part, that was almost the same.
So, we have seen that while curing COVID patients and other patients, many doctors, nurses, and the hospital staff mainly was affected by coronavirus. So, well, the person who are treating us, when they are affected, then it's difficult to cope with the situation. What are your views on this?
Yes, I totally understand. What's happening once you go into COVID, once one of your family members goes into COVID, there's a lot of fear factor. There's a lot of isolation. Both the patient and the family was, but that was a challenge that everybody had to face. So technology helped in that sense because you can have a WhatsApp call, you can have a video call. That gave a lot of comfort. But yes, that issue was there.
So, what was your key takeaways from all of this experience in the COVID and the lockdown situations?
My key takeaways was that first thing, we are better prepared to take such challenges. We have devised a lot of strategies now to make sure that in case of a repeat, God forbid, we are able to take challenges in terms of transport, logistics, supplies of good materials, have a well-trained workforce, how to handle this type of situations. We are now more reliant on technology in a sense that legal per se, if you talk about my department, everything is online. So I just need to have an app on my mobile and I can download every litigation, every trademark application, whatever you call, every contract. It's just on my mobile. Everything is on mobile. And now we work more virtually. We are more comfortable. The only thing that you're not comfortable is mentoring. What happens when people who are my colleagues, say with 5 years or 10 years of experience, when they come and sit with me and work with me, they can understand my thought process, why I'm changing the draft on a particular sentence. So that is one thing which is missing. Otherwise, and then time has lost its sense in the sense that it's not 9 to 5 job anymore.
Yes, sir. So, sir, before ending this webinar, I would like to take some audience questions. So, one of the questions that was posted was by Abhishek Dhaya. How do you plan to tackle the second phase?
I prayed first that there's no second phase. Uh, we have gone through a lot. All of us have lost people who are close to me in the COVID, and a lot of people have lost a lot of people who are close to them. So I really pray to God there is no second phase. However, like what I said, that we are now attuned to work virtually. We have a better system in place in terms of the task force that we created. We have identified alternative sources of raw materials, packaging materials, manufacturing, so that in case there is a shortage in manpower and the capacities are not full while we are working operating the factories, so we can share the workload. Plus, we also have identified a proper and showed logistic channels to look into it.
Yes, sir. So the second question is posted by Sahil Chopra. Mm, what impact did COVID-19 have on the medicine supply chain?
Uh, I am not the right person to answer it, but whatever issues I faced, what were escalated to the legal department was in terms of, like what I already told you, there had to be a protocol for loading and unloading workers. We have to identify different sources of logistics also in a sense, because if I say I'm importing 100 trucks per day, so I have a transporter who does that for me. But suppose if that transporter is down with COVID, is not able to work, then we should have two, three different vendors where we can source our products and arrange for the logistics. Packaging industry was the largest hit, so I hope even the government has understood it that for medicines formulations we need packaging. So the next time even raw materials which is used in making of the packaging is also exempt. That was one challenge we faced, which was very serious.
So, sir, before leaving, can you please tell some parting thoughts?
Pharma industry, you know, very responsible industry. I would start from that, and then if you see the total R&D spend globally is around $200 billion annually. India R&D spend is around 8.5% of the sale. That is around sale of $41 billion. We have an industry of around 41, $45 billion. The total quality assurance spend is around $9,700 million globally. So this is the amount we spend from our earnings to ensure that people get quality medicines. We are not only highly regulated but highly responsible industry. We work as a conscious corporate citizen. So this is I would like to be as my parting words.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. I would like to thank you and present you a token of appreciation from our team.
Thank you for calling me, giving me this opportunity to interact with all these lovely people here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Have a nice day.